Welcome back to SiouxOnline.com. Sioux Online has been conducting interviews with candidates from all across the city. Today, we have Terry Sheehan, Councillor for Ward 2. Hello, Terry.
Mike?
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. It's always an honor to be able to have the opportunity to speak to you and to my constituents in Ward 2. I'm a city councillor for Ward 2. I have been for the past 3 terms. I'm seeking re-election for my 4th term. Prior to that, I served 2 terms as the school board trustee for Ward 2 and the city. What had happened was when I was a school board trustee, I had done a lot of work in Ward 2, and when the councillor vacated that position, I had calls from Wellington, Queen Street, Retta, McDonald, Bruce Street, from these people that I had worked with for the past 2 terms on a number of issues in the school board, asking if I would run. It was quite an honor, so I decided to run in Ward 2, and I was successful, and ever since then have been working real hard for those people. And I couldn't do it without the support of my family, my wife Lisa. She's a medical assistant to an eye surgeon, and my 2 children.
Okay, you and Susan Myers have seemed to have locked up Ward 2 for a few years now. Why do you think that is?
I think it's the Ward 2 people demand a high level of service, and I know that we've been able to do that together. It's a job you have to work for. You have to. People really need to see that you want it. So far, I've knocked over 2,000 doors. I go to the apartments, the condos, the houses, and I talk to the people, and I find out what is their priorities, how they're feeling, what are their ideas, and from that, it helps me build what I'm going to do for the next 4 years. And that's why I think it's important to do that, to personally go to the door. It seems to be a lost art. There isn't a lot of people out there going door to door, but I will be on every street, knocking on doors and finding that out. And I think that pays off in dividends. People see that, and they see that you're accessible. You're giving them the personal information, and then they feel more open and welcoming to call you in the future, to send you an email. So I think that's part of the success.
This city seems to have more issues than Rob Ford of Toronto.
Hope not.
Brown water, poor road conditions, the new PUC building, the borrowing of money to fix up the city's electrical system, affordable housing, and the apparent, and I say apparent, 0% tax increase in an election year. And these are just some of the issues voters are having to face in this election. Now, the quality of water isn't only restricted to Ward 1, but seems to be working its way west. What do you think should be done to fix this problem?
Well, with the PUC, actually I just spoke with the PUC about 2 days ago. I was relaying some concerns from some constituents, and we had that conversation once again. And they're telling me that the brown water, the taste and the smell of the water should be fixed by the end of the year. They're introducing, and I'm not a scientist, they're introducing a whole bunch of scientific processes and some new machinery, if you will, to address those issues. Me, I understand the frustration of the people, in particular in Ward 1, but across the city. There are comments from across the city. And my message back to them is quite clear, that the people, their confidence has been shaken, and you're telling me now that this is going to be addressed and fixed by the end of the year. Well, it better be, because if not, quite frankly, I'm ready to seek another operator. If you recall, before I was on council, there was a great discussion about who was going to run the city's water system. And there were a number of players that showed interest, and the PUC won. Well, what's to stop us from going out and seeking another expression of interest to operate the water?
I can't get away from this water issue.
Yep.
I've spent the majority of my life in Ward 6. We never ever had a problem with our water.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently moved to Ward 3,
Yep.
and I'm buying bottles of water now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't drink it. I guess it's good enough to bathe in, but it tastes terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't we ignore the provincial laws and go back to the way we were before all these problems arose?
When they first came 3 years ago to City Council, and I told them, and I reminded the PUC the last time they were at council, about a month or two ago, that my words were, I have great trepidation about what you're doing here, messing around with the water and with the way it is. And yes, they mentioned it was provincial legislation and they had to do it. At that time I asked what would be the cost to go back, and the costs were nominal. And in the report that they brought to council, they said there should be no effect to the water. If so, it would be minimal and for a short period of time. Well, now it's 3 years later, and they're saying now, by the end of the year, you know, these processes and new equipment that they're bringing in is going to bring it back to the same taste, smell, and that there'd be no brown water. For me, I again say that I think, and I know that the people's confidence, in particular in Ward 1 and somewhat in 2 and 3, in the PUC is shaken. So I think it's, if it does not get better in the next couple of months, as I put forward a resolution, looking at someone else to operate the system.
Staying with PUC, the PUC built their Taj Mahal on Second Line, and now we're having to borrow money to upgrade the electrical system for the city. Don't you think it should have been the other way around? Fix the electrical system and then build your Taj Mahal?
Yeah, that the building in question, when I was talking to them, they've been talking about consolidating the 3 buildings that they had in the past 15 years ago, and they went through that process and started it and changed it. One of the things that is important is the whole infrastructure, whether it's electrical, water, roads. You know, our community really exploded in population after the war. You know, you see Monterey Gardens, all those houses up in Ward 2, those were all built after the war. So the infrastructure that was put in place is quite old. And then if you go back to when Sault Ste. Marie was, you know, first starting, in particular 100 years ago, because I was on the Celebrate 100 committee and handed out a lot of 100-year-old certificates in Ward 2. There's a lot of older homes. You can see that those are going to be needed to be redone considerably, and the electrical will need to be addressed, and it has to be done over a sustained period of time that they're going to do. So they're going to have to seek money, and also I think that we're going to have to talk with, and from a city perspective, I was at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Other cities are having the same problem, and we have to see what the province and federal government can do to help us, you know, enhance this.
Okay, but I'll liken the city
Yep.
to a homeowner.
Sure.
A homeowner wants to build a brand new 2-car garage,
Yep.
and so that he can house his, all his tools
Yep.
and work shed, everything in there.
Sure.
But his roof is rotting, and he has to change his roof.
Yep.
Don't you think this homeowner would fix his roof first and then build his Taj Mahal?
Mm-hmm.
And don't you think PUC should have gone that way?
Yeah, the PUC is right now under a microscope, and you know, it's to be expected because there are a number of issues that are going wrong, whether it's water or the electrical, borrowing money for the electrical, and then they built this new building. What their idea was, the PUC has said to the community, was they wanted to consolidate operations, and in the long term, it would pay off, in dividends. The operating cost to operate 1 building as opposed to 3 is, less than it would be to maintain 3 older buildings. That was their reasoning and their logic. much to do like what other businesses will do is they'll consolidate into one. However, with everything that's happened, people are questioning, well, why did you do it now? You know, why didn't you wait for a little bit? Because it is time. And, you know, with hindsight being 2020, they probably shouldn't have. They probably should have waited until they addressed some of these issues and then take a look at, you know, the long-term operating of their, you know, operations internally.
From speaking to people, all I'm getting from them is that it's Curran's legacy. That's what he wanted to leave the city with. You know that I've taken several photos of potholes in the city, throughout the city. You can't go anywhere in this city without seeing potholes. And I've forwarded them to City Hall so that they can be fixed. Why can't this city maintain good roads? And if you remember correctly, I spoke to you about a warranty on contractors' work. Is there a warranty?
There is, but I don't think it's enough overall, whether it's potholes or building new roads. We've run into situations with contractors that have built roads that are behind schedule. There are penalties that kick in when roads are late, significantly late. And what I have been talking about and talked to a few councillors is that I don't think that's enough. I think that we need to take a look at, you know, basically our contract. What are the milestones in construction, whether it's a pothole or an entire street, and you know, if they don't meet those milestones along the way, and the milestones should be up earlier than later, not towards the end of the project. That how can we use both the carrot and the stick, you know, to get these roads done quickly and efficiently. That's one of the things that I want to work on in 2014, because I can tell you now that we're doing about $20 million in road construction a year. That's far more than when I started 11 years ago. And it's a good thing, but there are growth issues with that. And that includes some of the projects that aren't opening when they say they are. I was talking to a constituent yesterday, and they said, just tell us, the construction company, they'll put up, or will put up road closed for 3 months. Well, if it's still sitting there, road closed for 3 months, and it's the 4th month, you know. So his point was, when you know you're behind, change the sign so we know, and then communicate it to us. And I thought that was perfect. And that's one of the things I'm bringing forward. This is stuff I'm hearing at the door, because I go door to door. And that was a great suggestion. You know, you're leaving signs out there that says road closed for 3 months, and you're in your 4th month. You know, when you're in the 2nd month, you know you're behind schedule. Change the sign, and then send the letters out to the people in the area, and put it out on Sue online, and communicate that, because a lot of this can be solved with communication. So I think your suggestion is good. Putting warranties, milestones on projects, whether they're potholes or entire streets, is a good idea.
This city is fast becoming a city of retirees.
Yes.
What do you suggest we do to get more affordable housing?
That's really, really important. That's one of the things that I'm constantly pushing for, an affordable housing strategy that will help us with an aging population that are on pensions, that are living in their homes. But some of the homes in Ward 2 and the city are older, and where the kitchen is on one floor, the bathroom's on another, sleeping quarters, etc. Well, what can we do to provide to them? And this isn't just the city. We need the province. This is all my research. The province and the feds have to come to the table on affordable housing, because the money that's out there from those two levels of government is not enough, and that has to be increased. And one of the things we can do as a city is lobby them for things like the tax credit that they had to do retrofits on homes. That was a few years ago. Bring it back, enhance it so that people can put lifts in, maybe build a bathroom on the floor. That'll allow seniors to live in their home. Overall complexes, yeah, we're gonna need the province and the feds to get involved in that. The good news this year is we saw the most apartment starts that we had seen in the last 20 years. It was from our apartment housing strategy. These are regular apartments, but when I talked to the people from social services, they said this is great because the more on stock, the better. I believe the private sector had invested about $10 million into this. And we also need the private sector involved in affordable housing and apartment starts. I spoke with one developer who's done a number of projects, and he said the strategy is not needed, it's imperative. So I've got that support. I'm going to continue to lobby that because we do have new apartments, but we also need some affordable housing as well. New apartments, they're across the way, and just to finish on that thought, is the people from social housing said, well, the apartments are here, it creates more stock. People, will move into them, which creates vacancies here, which creates people move up, sort of, that kind of thing. But yeah, that is something that's very, very important for this community to create affordable housing for everyone.
This year, City Hall passed an apparent 0% tax increase.
Sure. Yeah, it was a perfect storm, the perfect opportunity to do this. My philosophy is I'm not always for a 0%. I'm not always for a tax increase. I look at the budget as a whole. And when you take a look at the budget, you have to take a look at what's happening in that particular day in that particular year. This year, a number of things had happened that allowed us to get to that zero, which included the hospital commitment being paid off. We had the revenues from the casino. We were able to finance the John Rhodes Center and debenture that. It was a perfect time. Staff had recommended a nominal tax increase, and when I saw the package of one and change, and I took a look at everything else that was happening, I was like, what I've been hearing a lot from people though is that they're feeling the burden of tax. They're feeling the burden of costs, all costs, and that's one of the people that were saying is like, can we take a breather? Can we take a little break? So the perfect opportunity was there when I saw it. We did it. We did not cut anything. We did not cut anything, no services or at all, and we were able to get to zero. Now the thing with the zero, of course, as you mentioned, is your tax rate is two things. The Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, a separate entity, what they do is an assessment on your home, and then we set the tax rate. So we did not change or increase the tax rate. We left it the same. So that's how it's calculated. So if your home does increase in value significantly, you could see a rate. If your home stays the same and it's zero, you're zero. If your home goes down in value, you'll see a tax decrease. So it was the perfect opportunity to do it, and I felt it was needed. Now, going forward with the new council, we are going to not have the commitments of the hospital and some other things, and we have to figure out what the priorities are of the people over the next 4 years. So each and every situation is, you have to come with an open mind. This is how I do it. I take a look at all the situation, what's happening in the city, what's happening with the people, what's happening with our industry, and what can we do to fulfill the priorities of the people. And it is a bit of a juggling act, but it's a great one. And I do talk to people, I do polls, I go to the door, people call me. I was the one that had asked for the meetings to solicit feedback from the Finance Committee. There's a lot of good ideas. But going forward, I am committed to taking a look at how we operate, because I think there are efficiencies out there. I think that's what people want going forward, is us to take a look with a microscope and with a scalpel and cut out any waste. And we have to take a look at that, and I think that's important going forward, to keep taxes as low as possible and keep the services where people want them.
Is there anything you'd like to say to your constituents?
Thank you. Yes, I would. Dear Ward 2 constituents, it's been an honor serving you these past 3 terms as your city councillor. I've worked hard for you. I'm well prepared when I go to council. If you watch council on Monday night, you know that I'm asking a lot of questions. I have comments. I review the material. I get third-party people to consult with me prior to going in. I read the staff reports, but I'm not just reactive, I'm also proactive. You've seen me bring many things to the council table, in particular things that will encourage jobs and growth, things to encourage more opportunities for youth, and also to make sure that we have the best services possible and make sure that they're affordable for those people on pensions. I've worked real hard for you, and I'm going to continue to work real hard for you. Your priorities are my priorities. I'm always there, and I hope to see you at the door.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.